The night was too quiet for a hospital. Monitors whispered in green and gold. The hallway lights hummed, and Maya realized she had forgotten the sound of her own laughter. She used to be a nurse who brought cupcakes on night shift and told jokes to nervous patients, but that was before the accident last winter. Before her younger brother Jonah's text to be home soon became the last sentence he ever sent. Grief took the color out of the world. It shrank her prayers into single words, why, and sometimes please, and made every shift feel like a tunnel she couldn't quite exit. Maya hadn't quit God. Not exactly. She still carried a folded card in her scrub pocket with a verse her grandmother had written in a looping hand. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love Him. 1 Corinthians 2:9. But it felt like a poem from a faraway place. She believed it the way you believe summer will come during a long February. Technically true, but useless against the snow. The page came at 2:31 a.m. A new admit, pediatric. The nurse before her met her at the door. 8 years old, he said softly, car crash. Name's Eli. He keeps asking for a window. They put him in a windowless room for observation. Maya entered and found a mop of brown hair, freckles like constellations, and the kind of calm that didn't belong to most 8-year-olds or 2 crash survivors. His mother sat nearby, her blouse torn, a thin cut under her eye, hands clasped as if they were the only thing holding her together. Hi, Eli, Maya said, pacing on a smile. I'm Nurse Maya. No window yet, but I brought a picture. She turned her tablet to a stock image of a night sky over a meadow, the same one she showed anxious children and claustrophobic adults, and set it on the tray. The colors were overbright, ridiculous. She expected him to nod politely. Instead, Eli studied the image the way a kid stares at a wrapped gift, trying to guess the shape. That's not it, he said. His voice carried a certainty that startled her. What's not it? Maya asked. The light, he said simply. It's the wrong kind of light. She glanced at his mother. The woman's lips were trembling. He keeps saying that, she whispered. Since they pulled him out of the car, he told the M's he saw a light. Maya had been in rooms where the word light meant a last breath and a last heartbeat. She had learned to nod and say, you saw something beautiful, and then focus on the foredrip. She did not believe in arguing about heaven with a child, and she certainly did not believe in exploiting his story. But something in his tone unbothered. Steady felt like a hand tapping on a closed door inside her. What kind of light was it? She asked, pulling the stool closer. Eli's face turned thoughtful. Like, everything I was missing was there, like the light was a person. Someone who knew my name. He pressed a palm against the blanket. My grandpa was there, I think, but not like in the photos. He looked how I feel when I'm not scared. Maya swallowed hard. And what did it sound like? He laughed, a quick burst of certainty. Music, but not with instruments. Like the kind you can walk inside of. There was a pause. Monitors kept their soft rhythm. Maya could feel the ache in her chest trying to crack open. She had dreamed of Jonah, but never like this, never with that quiet, ordinary joy. She thought of the verse in her pocket. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived. She could hear her grandmother's voice whispering in the kitchen, the way she had when Maya was small. God's promises are bigger than our explanations. Do you want me to pray? She asked before she could lose the courage. Eli nodded. His mother nodded too, the tiniest motion. Heavenly Father, Maya began softly, smoothing the blanket near his hand. Thank you for watching over Eli. Thank you for being the kind of light that knows our names. Be near to his family tonight. She paused, her throat tightening. And please, please let the hope you gave him be real for all of us. After the prayer, Eli grew drowsy. His mother stepped into the hall to call her husband. The world resumed its machine hum, but something within Maya had shifted a degree, like the first inching of dawn you barely notice until you suddenly can see the shape of trees again. When her shift ended at 6, Maya didn't go home. She drove to the river where she and Jonah used to fish with their father when they were kids. The sky was a bruised violet, On the far bank, a man in a hoodie tossed a stick for his dog. Maya sat on the cold bench and took out the card. No eye has seen. She turned it over. On the back, her grandmother had added another line in ink that had bled a little over time. The God who prepared heaven prepared today too. Maya whispered, "Do you still prepare?" She pressed her fingertips to her eyes until tiny consolation sparked. "Because I feel unprepared for everything." Over the next week, she visited Eli whenever she could. He loved baseball cards and tangerines and said grace with the clumsy courage of a child trying out grown-up words. He never bragged about his vision. He spoke of it the way someone talks about a memory that's too dear to mishandle. He asked Maya if there were animals in heaven because his dog Daisy had run away last summer. Maya didn't pretend to know. She just told him about Isaiah's picture of wolves and lambs sharing a meadow, Isaiah 11:6, and felt something loosen again in her chest. On the fourth day, a woman from pastoral care dropped a thin book of prayers by Eli's bed. The cover showed a path through a forest toward a golden horizon. Eli looked at it, grimaced, and said, "That's still the wrong light." "What makes it wrong?" Maya asked, half smiling now. "It's a picture of a place," he said patiently, as if explaining how to tie shoes. "But the light is a person. When I looked at the light, I wanted to run, not away toward, because I knew the light wanted me." He shrugged. "You can't draw that." That night, a storm rolled in. The hospital windows rattled. Gurneys squeaked louder in their urgency. A code was called to floors down. Maya skipped her break and held a shaking woman's hand until the doctor came out and said what he had to say, and it was not the thing she'd prayed for. She ducked into an empty supply closet and leaned her head against the mop handle, the smell of bleach filling her lungs. "Where are you?" she asked. "If heaven is real, why does this hurt so much down here?" Her phone buzzed. It was a text from a youth pastor she barely knew, but who had been close to Jonah. She hadn't heard from him in months. "Thinking of you tonight. I was reading John 14. In my Father's house are many rooms. I go to prepare a place for you. Also praying God prepares peace for you now." She stared at the words until they blurred. Prepared place. Prepared now. Her grandmother's handwriting. The pastor's text. Eli's steady eyes. All of it was either coincidence or a choreography she was too tired to deny. The following morning, as the storm cleared, Eli's mother pulled Maya aside. Tears shone in the grooves beside her nose. "He's scheduled for a second scan," she said. "They saw some swelling. He's trying to be brave, but he's quiet. Would it help if I sat with him?" Maya asked. When she walked in, Eli was tracing the pattern in his blanket with a finger, as if trying to memorize it. He looked small, lost in all that hospital white. She pulled up the stool. "Tell me about the light again," she said. He told the story with less detail this time, but more warmth. The words felt less important than the way he said them, like a child humming a favorite song with half the lyrics forgotten, but the melody intact. When he finished, she took a breath. "My brother died last year," she said, voice low. "I don't know what he saw as he left, but I hope it was like that." Eli tilted his head, freckles brightening near his eyes. "I think it was," he said, simply. The light was too big to miss. That afternoon, during his scan, Maya stole a few minutes in the chapel. It was modest stained glass and careful blues, rows of wooden pews worn to a softness by hands and prayers. The quiet felt honest. She sat in the third pew, opened her palms on her knees, and tried to pray without explaining anything. "God," she whispered, "if you are preparing something I cannot imagine, help me trust you with what I can see. Help me see with more than my eyes." There was no thunderclap, no shiver up her spine. But she felt a small, precise nudge, like a key turning in a lock. "Call your father." They had grieved separately since Jonah's funeral, each retreating into the hard shell of being strong. She typed, "Can I come by after my shift? I made your favorite stew." Her father replied in under a minute. "Yes, I'd like that." The skin showed improvement. The swelling had decreased. The neurosurgeon solid, practical called it encouraging, Eli beamed. His mother cried in a new way, like someone who had been underwater too long and finally reached the surface. When Maya left his room that evening, she paused in the doorway. "Eli," she said, "thank you for sharing your light with me." He grinned, understanding more than his ears suggested. "It wasn't mine anyway," he said, driving to her father's that night. Maya noticed the way the sunset threaded gold through the storm cloud's edges. The light wasn't soft, it was specific, like handwriting. She remembered another line from Revelation, a city where God himself will be their light, where he dries every tear. Revelation 21:3-4, 23. She did not pretend to understand heaven, but she felt, for the first time in months, that heaven understood her. At her father's apartment, she chopped carrots, letting the rhythm steady her thoughts. He put on a jazz record Jonah used to tease as elevator music, and they smiled at each other, the ache made friendly by shared memory. They ate at the small table with the squeaky leg. There were long pauses, but they were good pauses, like rests in a song. After dishes, her father cleared his throat. "I dreamed of him," he said. "Jonah." He didn't say anything. He just looked at me like he stopped, eyes shining, like he was okay. Maya swallowed. "I think he is," she said, and found that she believed it, not as a theory, but the way you believe in the warmth of a hand. She told her father about Eli. She told him about the verse on the card and the text from the pastor and the chapel. "I don't know how it all fits together," she admitted, "but I think God is still writing." They prayed together, awkward, tender. There were no fancy words, just gratitude and the ache of hope making room for itself. When she left, the night smelled like rain giving back what it had borrowed to the earth. Weeks passed. Spring took its time. Eli went home, wearing a superhero cape over his hospital gown, because when you've seen a person shaped like you don't to leave the hospital like a regular person. He sent Maya a drawing in the mail, a giant sun with a smile and stick figures holding hands under it. She put it on her refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a fish. She still had hard nights. Not every code ended with a hallelujah. There were parents who left with empty arms, and sometimes Maya went back to the chapel and cried the kind of tears that Dante asked permission. But now, when she whispered why, the question sounded less like an accusation and more like a child tugging a sleeve. And sometimes, when the monitors beeped in their polite chorus, she could almost hear music you could walk inside of. On a morning, when the dogwood outside the hospital finally exploded into white petals, she found herself in the elevator with a young mother and a baby who kept trying to eat the corner of her badge. The mother was pale, exhausted. "Is it always this scary?" she asked. "No," Maya said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "It isn't always this scary. There's more light than you think." The woman nodded, trusting a stranger, because sometimes that's how faith tiptoes in on a crowded elevator, in a borrowed sentence. When the doors opened, Maya turned left toward her station, slipped her hand into her pocket, and felt the worn edges of the card. She didn't need to pull it out to recite the words. They weren't borrowed anymore. They were inscribed. "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived, but hearts can begin to lean. Souls can start to sing again, and hands can find hands." Even in the dim hallways of a hospital that sometimes feels like a world, heaven's promise does not erase the ache, but it plants a seed of tomorrow right in the middle of today. The same God who prepares rooms we cannot imagine, the God who prepares mercies we can small, precise, and daily. A text at the right hour, a child's unembarrassed hope, still shared at a squeaky table, a sky after storm remembering how to be blue. Maya still misses her brother. She probably always will. But when she thinks of him now, the longing angles upward. Her grief is no longer bottomless, it has a floor. And that floor is a promise. Somewhere ahead, a person-shaped light knows her name and Jonah's too. Somewhere ahead, the music has no instruments, because everything is an instrument, and no one is left out of the song. Somewhere ahead, what God has prepared will undo every darkness and fill every empty room. Until then, There is work to do and hope to practice. There are patience to sit with and prayers to offer and windows to open when a storm breaks. And sometimes, when the hallway is quiet and the monitors whisper their green and gold lullabies, Maya closes her eyes and says, "I trust you," and means it barely at first, then fully because she remembers a boy who saw a light and called it a person, and a God who said, "I go to prepare a place for you," and then kept preparing ordinary mercies all the way here. Share and comment this if you believe God still writes the best stories.